Okay, so we're going to look now at how we load JSON data and how we explore it and actually pull out the pieces of the data that we want to plot. So let's take a look at a data set. So here we have Boston City employee data. So this is data about what they earned the last year. And if we look at that data in, for example, Sublime here, it's quite a large file, and so I'm going to scroll down here so we can look at this, but it's a bit of a mess. At the beginning we've got a lot of data, one called meta here. Now when we have curly brackets like this and something with a colon, we know that this is an object. Okay, so inside this data here, I've put in this, usually the data comes to you without this var data equals. You'll have it something like this when you download from a website. But I'm putting var data equals because I want to create an object called data. And within that object, we're going to have other objects. So the first one is called meta. Now we've got inside that object, we've got lots of other objects here. So this is a bit of a mess for me to look at. I can scroll through and it just goes on and on and on, as you can see. And there's all kinds of things here. And now eventually we'll see that the data begins to change. You see on the right here? Now let's have a look. It'll scroll up and we'll suddenly see a different kind of data. Here we go. So now here we've got a different kind of data. And if I scroll along here, okay, now I'm beginning to see this is data about somebody that works, for example, in human resources, and there's some numbers. I need to figure out what this is, but this is probably the data that I'm after. And as you see, it's somewhere like 1,000 lines into the file. Okay, so what we need to do to explore this data is we need to load the file. So let's take a look at the file here. It's called Boston Employee Salaries.json. Now what I need to do is I'm going to create some HTML5, and I've already done that here. I've called it walkdata.html, and this is a simple HTML file. In the head, I've got a head and a body. In the body I've just got some text saying the city data is loaded into a variable called data. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some JavaScript in here, and I'm saying it's script and the source is the name of this file, Boston Employee Salary Data.json. So it's going to go and pick this file up and load it. Okay, so the file that we have here, here, Boston City data, and it's going to load it, and I'm going to have a variable called data. Let's run that file. So I'm going to double click on this, and here now it took a little while because it read, I think it's 23,000 employees data, but it's loaded into a variable called data. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Chrome development environment and particularly into the console. So this page is loaded and it's still sitting there. So to get into the console, we can either go to here, we go to tools, and down here we've got developer tools, okay? Or I can do Control-Shift-I, and on the Mac it's Command-Shift-I. So I'll open the developer tools, and now here I've got a console, and I can type things into this console. Let's see if I can make that a bit larger. There we go. So there's a number of things here, but one of them is this bottom thing called console, and here I can type in JavaScript. So I've already got that variable called data. Yep, I put var data equals that whole JSON file. So now I've got this variable called data. Let's take a look at it. So now we're beginning to what we call walk that object. So data happens to be an object, and inside that object there are two variables. One is called meta, and it happens to be an object, and another one is called data, and as you see it's an array of 22,000. Now this in this array is the actual data that we need, but we don't know where it is in that array. So, but let me look at data.data. So that's picking out now this array. Yep, there it is. It says it's an array and it's 22,000. If I click on this, you'll see that it gives the first 999,000 and then three separate big blobs here. But what it's saying is that I can pick out data.data is an array, and therefore I know how to address arrays. Let me clear this a minute. So data.data naught should be the first element of that array. So there it is. So now we can see, just by looking at this data, we can actually guess. Here's a name, Anthony Adario, supervising claims agent, human resources, and there's well, these are all strings. Notice that these are all strings. Now they're really numbers, but inside the string. So we're going to have to unwrap those. But if I look here, I'm guessing that the total salary is this number here, $100,381.19. And I'm going to guess, what do you guess this last number is here? Looks like a zip code, right? Yeah. Now, probably the metadata should tell us about these columns, if you like, and what these things are. So let me go back, and I'll do, instead of, I'm going to make this bigger. Yep. So let me do, instead of data.data, how about data.meta? That's the metadata. Now that's an object, and inside that object is something called view. And now let me look through this and see if there's anything. What I want is something that describes what each of those columns were that I was looking at in the data. Well, maybe it's this object here. So that's an array, and it's an array of 20 objects. Let's look to see what's in the first object. Well, the field name is SID. So it's an ID of some kind. Let me close that object again. The next one is an ID. Next one, position. You see it here? Position. Name is position. So the name of that 0, 1, 2, well, it's the third column, but it's labeled 2. Now, created at. Somewhere they're going to have their name. No, created meta. Name updated at. So this is all when the file was created, updated, etc. So gradually we're getting along here, and yep, name. So this is probably their name. So the This is 0, 1, 2, 3. This is the 9th column. It's labeled 8 here, but it's the 9th column and it's labeled name. And if I keep going, let me look at something at the end. 19th, yep, field name is zip. And the 18th is total earnings. So maybe that's what I want to pick out. It'll be the 18th object in that last array. So let's see if I can get that for the first person. How would I code that? Well, I know it's data.data, that gets me to the array, and I want the first row. And now, what do I want? I want the 18th, or is it the 19th column? Well, let's take a look. There it is. And let's see what data.data 0 and 19, that should be the zip. Yep, there it is. It's the zip. So, what I'm interested in is that. So now I know how to access this and pull out the maximum salary. I can pull out their name. What was that? That was data.data 0 bracket, I think it was 9. No, that's that's their position. Maybe it's 8. Yep, there's their name. So we're probably maybe interested in 8, maybe 9 and 18. And we can get their zip code if we want. But now we can go ahead and code and draw a bar chart. Okay, so that's how to walk the data